I hate that they have that new thing now with the recording in progress. And
I mean, I guess it's probably
I
illegal
get, yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
that they have to do that.
Yeah.
But anywho, I'm so excited to see you and thank
Me
you.
too. Are you exhausted?
Yeah, totally. But
I
it's
bet, I bet
so
you
good.
are.
Though. It's like such a good exhausted.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I'm an Olympic level talker, and I don't know that I could pull off what you've been doing the past 3 days.
We had to go to an event last night, a Holy Angels dinner. I was like, I cannot talk to anyone.
Yeah, don't like hiding in the bathroom. Don't anybody talk to me.
I texted you about it, yeah.
Yes.
So I went in though, and one of our friends was there, and she came over. I'm like, I've been talking all day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. She's like, do you want me to leave you alone? I was like, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. It's just,
I know.
don't expect a lot from me because I'm kind of tapped out.
Yeah. When I used to teach like at really high capacity, I would come home and Anthony would be like, so how was your day? And I would just look at him and be like, no, I can't talk. I can't talk. I can't listen to myself anymore. I can't hear my own voice anymore. I have nothing left to give. I have nothing left to give.
And so at least with that, it was just your voice you were sick of. Now looking at do you know, I'm making a list of where I need Botox.
Right here, baby. This is my next endeavor. And right here.
Right. Hopefully, who knows? I probably don't stop the camera. So you've probably half of you probably see me doing this. Like,
oh yeah, I do this a lot.
Gravity really does a number.
I know exactly what I'm due for my next Botox treatment, like based on my sessions. I'm like, oh yeah, next week, gotta go in.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I never really thought about that part of it, but
yeah,
here we are.
I know the Zoom thing, though, the COVID experience has done a number, I think, on all of our, like how we view ourselves, because I never at work had a mirror. I didn't believe in mirrors for a variety of different reasons. And like now I sit and look at myself all day long. It is like such a bad place to be. It's such a bad place to be. Like I had an image of myself that was so spectacular when I was at work. I was still like around 22. Everything worked, everything fit beautifully, everything. And then like reality set in once COVID, and I'm starting to teach this way. And I'm like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad.
Like those memes. Have you seen my Instagram? Like what I think I look like out for a jog, and then what I really look like.
What I really look like.
There's a reason that's a thing. Because
I know.
Anyway, I'm so happy again to have you here. For those of you that don't know, Jessica Spillane, she is a quasi-talented woman, and not only a master teacher of Pilates, owner of an incredible studio that has gone through many challenges and many reinventions, if you will.
Yes.
You have also taken on a business side. You are a Board of Education member, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct.
So I'd rather hear from you and your Olympic talking skills, sharing with us all about who Jessica Spillane is.
Yes, no problem. So, starting with Pilates, yes, I've been a teacher for almost 20 years in Pilates. I started my own studio 17 years ago. Started in a very small space, one apparatus, in the second floor of a gym. I actually shared the space with the gym's laundry room. And it was very humble beginnings. There was no air conditioning in the space. Plus you run the dryer, plus you have people exercising, no windows. And in 6 months, I went from having not a single client on my very first day to teaching 50 private sessions a week. And that, I think, showed what the power of what I was doing, what that really was, that the women in Bergen County were willing to look past all of that sort of ruggedness, if I'm going to, be polite about it, and come and commit to Pilates as a movement. And from that point, and I really was one of the only games in town at that point, boutique fitness wasn't a thing back then. It was still like a gym, it was still like membership, go to a gym, do group classes. Jack LaLanne was still up on 9W. This is like I'm aging myself here. And so I moved and expanded a number of times, hired people, wound up certifying people. Became a certifying school. I wrote my own certification program because there wasn't one in New Jersey that I could use. So that's sort of how I entered into becoming a master teacher, which is really just an industry title. It makes it sound much fancier than what it actually is. But, I'm a teacher trainer, therefore considered a master teacher. I'm the author of the certification program. And it's been very good to me. It's been a really wonderful experience, dealing with people in their pain, because most people who do Pilates come to it from a place of pain. They don't come to it from a place of like, I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to get my beach body, or that's what Orange Theory is for, or cycle bars. That's what Coaster Plaza is for. That's what Coaster Plaza is for.
Right.
That's not why people do Pilates. So it's a very intimate journey to go on with someone when they start, this kind of a practice. So it's been very rewarding because you help people feel better. It's not about looking better. It's about feeling better and getting rid of some pain, chronic issues that they might have, wear and tear, which is why I really specialize on people who are over 45. It's not until that time that people really come to the place of saying, I need to do something differently that's less abusive to my body and more supportive. So I don't usually even meet anybody until they're 45. Even when I was a 30-year-old instructor, my client base was still 45, 50, 55. So it's, so yes, so I've done that. I've moved, I've pivoted 1,000 times. I've had a lot of very dramatic things happen during the course of my business ownership, which has given me a lot of insight into really business more so than even Pilates. And so now I actually run a group of 3,000 small business owners. They're all Pilates and yoga studios. And I have a membership, and we talk continuing business education, and I bring in speakers, and we do workshops, and we do seminars. We're doing a retreat next spring. We're going to Tulum. So yeah, I know. I can't wait to just go somewhere else. But my concentration, because I was one of the, pioneers, so to say, in the Pilates and in the boutique fitness world, a lot of up and comers, a lot of new people are learning it, and they have a lot of questions, especially during COVID. How do I come back from this? How do I rebuild from this? And so that's been my biggest thrust over the past 12 months, I would say, is nurturing that group, bringing them what they need, and supporting the small business that really got hit hard. So I'm kind of like the grandma in the industry, so it's like, I'm sort of serving that purpose.
You're a very young grandma. You're a very,
I am.
like your own grandmother. You're very
Yes. Exactly.
stylish and hip and cool.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Not many people have ever called me stylish, hip, and cool, Janine. I have to thank you for that one.
It's true though. And I mean, I love that idea of, it's such a niche for those business owners to find support through somebody who, like yourself, who's been through, so not only knows the craft and the art, I don't know if I'm saying that right about Pilates.
Yeah.
But also from a business perspective has been through it all and can kind of help them. That's such a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's so much out there that allows Pilates teachers to become better Pilates teachers. There's nothing out there that allows the owners to become better owners. Right. And that's the void that I'm filling. And since I have had so many experiences, bizarre experiences, I've learned so much through the process. I always said all I wanted was just to have a nice small little Pilates studio. That's all I wanted. But I've had tornadoes, fires, floods, theft, dead skunk. I've bought businesses, I've started businesses, I've sold businesses. So I've been through all of the different waves that you can experience as a business owner. So I have a lot to bring to the table on that front.
I think you have a lot to bring to the table in all aspects. So yes, as a business owner, but also as a human to
Thank you.
show that kind of resilience.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah,
lot. That's a lot to have gone through,
it
right?
is. It is a lot.
And you've been through a lot just in general. So for somebody to look at you and continue to see your positive attitude, your commitment, because obviously you're passionate about what you do. So that's such an inspiration to know that when you really find what you love to do,
Yeah,
that it helps keep you going, right? When something goes,
absolutely.
and just your positivity. Like people
Yeah,
could wake up every day. We all have our own struggles, right? It's
absolutely.
nice to be the victim. Like you were a victim of a lot of
A
shit.
lot of different things. Absolutely. And I think like at every one of these things that happened along the journey, I had a choice to make. And the choice was go on and reinvent, or just throw in the towel and say, I tried, but I'm going to go and do something else. I'm going to go back to working for somebody else. And every time I made the decision, I'm going to keep going forward. I have something special here. I'm doing something great. And so when I made that choice, you're automatically making the choice to be positive about it. Automatically. You can't make the choice to push forward and rebuild and be negative and feel sorry for yourself. You've just got, and like, trust me, I had a couple days each time, So yeah, exactly. But then it's like, okay, today's Monday. I've decided I'm moving forward. I'm going to keep going, and here's what I'm going to do. And you just have to go about it with a positive mindset. And that's the key to everything, is having that mindset. The first time I felt like I cracked a little bit was COVID. And it was, I kind of had definitely this feeling of, I've proven my resiliency over and over again. And so I had a lot of faith in my resiliency. And COVID was the first time in a long time it was shaken. And I remember the moments. Anthony had said to me at some point, I had been paying my rent on my studio for an empty space. I didn't get any rent relief. And I was on month 6 of paying $5,000 a month for the building to just sit there. And Anthony said to me, Jess, we really need to think about, is your industry going to come back? Like, is it going to come back? And I looked at him and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it had never even crossed my mind. And then I started to let that set in, and I cried a little bit when he said it, and I was mad at him for saying that. But then I was like, he's right. He's right. And I don't know if it is going to come back. And that was when I made the decision to close. And I had basically exhausted the studio's cash reserves, by writing out rent checks for a building that I wasn't using. And I had been paying my instructors and, trying to do some little stuff on Zoom here or there, but I really focused more on the physical therapy side of things. So what didn't really adapt to a lot of people, because getting up and on the floor wasn't the greatest thing for a lot of my clientele. So so I had to make that choice to close and then figure out what my next chapter was. And this was the ultimate pivot. This was the ultimate pivot. The other times were rebuilding. This time is reinvention. Mm-hmm. So it's a different mindset that I had to go into it with this.
But what an incredible strength of mind you had to, and just strength to make the decision.
Yeah.
And to make the pivot. And it's impressive. It's impressive.
Thank you. Thank you.
So speaking of strength, so that's mental strength. Let's talk about physical strength for a minute. Yes. Can you just indulge somebody who might not really know exactly what, like they've heard of Pilates, but it's like yoga, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Explain exactly what Pilates is.
Yes. So Pilates, I would argue, is one of the, hold on, sorry. I'm in an interview right now. Pilates is probably one of the most misunderstood forms of movements. And people think, like you said, it's like yoga. And it is like yoga in that it's mind-body, right? There is a mind-body connection. But Pilates is actually the very first form of physical therapy that the world ever had. And it was developed by a man named Joseph Pilates during World War I. He was a medic, And in the war, he was a German man. He was a medic in the war, and he was also a fitness model for medical textbooks. So prior to the war starting, because he had a medical background, he used to actually pose for anatomical charts. And that's how they wrote their medical books back then. They didn't have ultrasounds and MRIs, right? So he had what he believed was like this perfect physique, and he would put himself into these modeling poses, and they would draw him and they would publish him in medical journals. Fast forward, he goes into the war, he's a medic, and the soldiers are, wounded, they're having trouble kind of rehabilitating or moving again after being shot, being injured. And he's kind of one of those crazy geniuses. And he started just looking around the room and seeing what he could use to help build strength back up in the soldiers. And he started by taking the bed springs from underneath the bed, like from the box spring, and he attached them to the walls. And he would put their feet in the springs, or he would put their hands in the springs, and he would have them press down to have that kind of resistance. It was like that first exercise band. And if you'll see right behind me, this is what we have. It's the same thing. It's still sort of that old technology in a way. He was a design genius. And so he started rehabilitating soldiers in the field from their injuries using things that he had around him. He used a keg. They had, I guess they must have had kegs on base or whatever it was, and he was a big beer drinker. And that keg was used as the very first barrel, and he would lay people over it to open up their spine. If you lay, he would have them lay on their stomach to open up their spine in the posterior chain, and then he would have them flip over and lay on the keg on their back to open up their spine on the anterior chain. Then he would lay them on their side and have them open up in the sagittal plane. So he was so ahead of his time. He was a pioneer. War ended. He came to the United States. He opened up a studio on 57th Street. We really couldn't call it a studio at that point. That's where he went and did his practice, right? And below him, downstairs, was a furniture maker. That furniture maker's name was Gratz. And he would brought his designs that he had drawn up for all of the equipment that we know today, the reformer, the barrels, the Cadillac, all of it. And he brought it downstairs to his friend Gratz, and Gratz built it for him. Gratz is still an equipment manufacturer today, and they still make the exact design that Joseph had made in his sketches back during the war. So all of the equipment that you see now that, have become popular, like a Club Pilates or an SLT, all of that comes from Joe's designs back in the war and his sort of innovation with how the body needed to move in order to rehab itself. And his belief system was, if you take the body through a series of movements, and I'm not going to call them exercises, I call them movements. If you take the body through a series of movements in all planes of motion, which means your front, your back, your sides, and your rotations, you will bring the body fully into alignment and balance it out. And when I say balance, I'm not talking about weeble wobble balance. I'm talking about balance, meaning you're not going to be overloading your knee in one area, right? You're going to have taken your body weight and shifted that pressure throughout the whole circumference of the knee or the whole circumference of the leg. And we then have much more longevity. We have much more ability to come back from injury. We have greater ability to continue the sports that we love or the movements that we love for a longer period of time because the wear and tear isn't there. So something as simple as walking up a flight of stairs. Anybody who walks up a flight of stairs, everybody walks up the stairs the same way. They lead with the ball of their foot. They lean forward. Their booty shifts out. They arch their lower back because the booty gets shifted out. And that's how they climb upstairs. Everybody who climbs the next set of stairs, take notice. But what that does over and over and over and over again is it puts you into a sway back position, creates compression, tilts the pelvis so that your booty is sticking out, overloads the knee right? Because if you're leading out of your toe and you're putting your knee out further out than your toe and driving up out of that, you're putting strain on your knee over and over and over again. And those patterns create wear and tear. They eventually end with compression in your lower back. I have sciatic pain. I'm very tight in my lower back. I have arthritis in my knees. My hips are all crooked, you name it. But you can apply that same thinking to driving in a car, sitting at a computer,
Right.
taking your dog for a walk,
Right.
walking up the stairs, how you sleep, all of the regular patterns in life. We don't even realize it, but we do it the exact same way every single time. So we're creating this erosion in our body. By the time you hit 45, that erosion, you start to feel it.
Mhm.
That erosion starts to, and that's when people start saying like, oh, just wait until you hit your 40s. The aches and pains set in. Those aches and pains don't have to set in if you are working in a balanced way in kind of other areas of your life. So the way I describe Pilates is it's like a good pair of Spanx. It doesn't like, it just sort of shores you up and puts you in the right position so that everything you do, you can do safely. If you like going to Closter Plaza for your fitness, rock on, do it. But if you balance it out,
Yeah.
or if you have the anatomical knowledge about your body, then you're going to do it safely. Right? So you're going to be able to go to Orange Theory until you're 80, or you're going to be able to run that marathon and be the winner in your age group when you're in your 80s, because you've taken care of your body in a balanced way.
Mhm.
So that was my very long-winded explanation. I hope nobody fell asleep.
Yeah, no.
I kind of geek out when I talk about Pilates because I really love it, because I hate exercise. I hate to exercise. So I'm your least likely person to sit here and proselytize about a form of fitness, which is why I call it movement, not exercise.
It's a super important movement, and especially because
Super important.
I am just turned 46, and
Yeah.
all of my friends, we say the same thing. Like all of a sudden, when you get out of bed in the morning, like things hurt. So
Yeah.
frustrating, but
Mhm.
we're not paying attention.
Right.
We're not paying attention to our bodies, and I've realized this more. And even, even with walking and going on the treadmill, like I have really tight hamstrings. And you modeled, I think, right? You modeled a stretch
Yeah.
a couple months ago that your description and your explanation was like mind blowing to me. Like I'm like, how am I 46 and I've never
Right.
thought about this movement and what I really need to be doing in between
Right.
exercise to
Exactly.
really strengthen and take care of my body so I can continue to exercise, right?
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is that, they'll say something like, oh, Pilates isn't for me. I tried it. But it's not, you have to put it in its right place. Pilates is not about the endorphin rush. Pilates is not about breaking the sweat. Pilates is not about losing weight. It's not about those things. Pilates is a tool in your toolkit to help facilitate all of that. And that, I think, is why people don't understand what Pilates is. And the other thing too is we work with equipment, right? Yoga works exclusively with a mat. To do yoga properly is really hard. I deal with a lot of yoga injuries.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me. So this equipment was actually developed to help facilitate people to be able to do mat work safely.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people get a bad taste in their mouth for Pilates because they've tried a mat class at their gym as their first experience, or a mat class on Zoom for their first experience. And they're like, whatever, that kind of thing. And I could see that. I could see why that would be the case, because that's where you should be progressing to, not starting from.
Mhm.
And it's also, if you take Pilates and just like your gym, it's you kind of also have to look at like getting your pasta at Olive Garden versus getting your pasta at Rayo's.
Some metaphor. Well, I love metaphors. That was a good one.
Exactly. So you sort of, it's all well and good to go look for that cheap way of doing it, but there's an Olive Garden for everybody, but there's a Rayo's for everybody too.
Exactly.
So you got to kind of think about your body and what you want to get out of it. And the equipment is built ergonomically. The equipment is built to be able to facilitate all these movements. And, the shoulder blocks, for example, on the reformer, when you lay down and you press out against those springs, a lot of people will say, oh, the shoulder blocks, they feel really heavy, they hurt, can you lighten it? And that to me is, no, I'm not lightening it. That's an indication that your shoulders are up here by your ears. It's giving you feedback. It's telling you something about your body that you didn't know.
Mhm.
So you have to give in to the shoulder blocks. Let them help you create that space in your cervical spine. If you're feeling heaviness there, then that means your cervical spine is compressed and you need to give in. And this is going to help actually fix that and correct that for you.
Right. So for women our age, I'll say for midlife women, is there a pattern? Like, do you see certain areas of the body that women our age tend to struggle with more than others, or is it different for everyone?
It's lower back first.
Yeah.
Lower back first. And the reason is because we have a tendency to walk around with our booties tilted back too much. And what that does is it creates compression. You can just get a visual of walking like a duck.
Yeah.
And if you think of it
in my chair.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you want to try to be sitting when you're sitting. It's not even about, when people think sit up tall, that's the other thing. As soon as you say sit up tall, shoulders back, people stick out their ribs and their booty, right? You don't want that. You want to be sitting right on top of your sits bones in a vertical way, pulling the pelvis in ever so slightly so that you're neutral, right? So we kind of look at the line that goes from the ear all the way down to the ankle. If you look at somebody's profile, you want it to be a straight line that goes right down. And most people, the line goes, their shoulders, the line goes, I'll go this way. The shoulders go forward, right? Then it goes down the spine. It sort of tilts in and then it goes out again at the booty. And then the hip goes this way and then it goes straight down. So you want that straight line. I always tell people that, you always thought that you were never going to use geometry again in your life. I use geometry every day. It's kind of crazy. I'm like, we need to look at these angles. Where are the lines? Where are the right angles? The 45, the 90, where do you want to be in your joints?
Right. And talk to us about core.
So, okay, core, everybody sort of, that's the default thought for Pilates, right? The core. And it absolutely is. Reason being is Joe Pilates felt his method was called contrology. It didn't become called Pilates until after he died in 1968.
Okay.
Nobody called it Pilates back then. They all called it contrology. And it was the art of controlling your body's movements from your core. So the idea is that I like to think of it as your core, and I don't just mean your stomach muscles. Your core is your back muscles. It's your glute, all three glute, the glute medius, glute minimus, glute maximus. It's all of your abdominal muscles, including the ones that lay on the anterior side of your spine. It's your lower back muscles, your QL and your piriformis, your full back muscles, and your lats. That's your core, that box.
Okay.
And everybody thinks core, if I do a bunch of sit-ups, I've done core. That's not it. So the core is actually very deep. It's like a corset that we have inside our body. It runs 360 degrees around the circumference of our spine. And when you do proper core work and when you breathe properly, it's as though your ladies in waiting are pulling on the laces of your core. So pulling on the laces of your corset.
Right.
Pulling it tighter and tighter and tighter. And through a Pilates practice, eventually that corset stays tied. And so your spine can't go and do whatever the hell it wants, right? All of us have that corset, but most of us are walking around with all of the laces undone. And if all the laces are undone, then the spine can compress, the spine can shift. We get discs that can puncture, can herniate. We get discs that bulge. The discs can go a variety of different directions. They slip out all different ways. And that's what then causes the slow, train wreck of back problems that people have starting in midlife.
Right.
So when you work from your core, it's like pulling the laces in that corset together, elongating it, tightening it, elongating it, tightening it, and then holding it that way so that when you go and sit on your spin bike, Your spine is long. You're not compressed down on top of yourself. You're scooped in and up through your abdominals. Your obliques are pulled in. Your back extensors are long. Your hips are neutral. Now you can spin for hours and hours and hours and not get hurt.
Right.
So all movements are supposed to come from the stabilization of your core rather than powering your body out of your limbs. We're supposed to power our body through our core. That's what it's about.
Here you talk about, though, the core being a really encompassing really a lot.
A lot.
And for me personally, I know I was having some lower back pain and I went for acupuncture, and she's like, your glutes and so piriformis, just tell us where that is. That's
piriformis is at the top of your glutes,
okay,
underneath your glutes. It's one of the hardest muscles to get to.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they have what's called piriformis syndrome, and it mimics sciatica.
Mm.
So a lot of time people say like, oh, I have sciatic pain, I have sciatica, and it's often a tight or inflamed piriformis.
Mm-hmm.
So that can actually get addressed with proper stretching and proper strengthening in an extension position. So strengthening that happens when you lay on your stomach is called extension. Mm-hmm. So doing movements that work in that direction help solve piriformis syndrome.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting though, because I mean, I'm married to an orthopedic surgeon and I didn't know that. Like when I went for acupuncture, she's like, talking about my not realizing how connected, the glutes were to my lower back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of times when, in order to have the glutes sort of surround the sacrum, right? The sacrum is at the base of your spine. It's like that flat plate. You can think of it as the foundation to the house, right? So the glutes, if you're going to use the visual of the corset, the glutes go down, the corset goes down to the glutes, right? And it's the glutes' job to stabilize that sacrum, which is the foundation of the house. So if you have tight glutes, if you have glutes that are dominating and you're not balanced in the front, so it's pulling your pelvis one direction. If you have glutes that are weak, they're not doing anything, right? Then your sacrum is free to move. And that's why L5S1 is everybody's biggest problem. L5S1 is the vertebrae the two vertebrae, that disc is the one that is the most likely to flare up on people who don't have strong glutes or who have overly tight glutes where it's shifting their pelvic position.
Yeah. Gosh, it's
fascinating. It's fascinating.
Right.
It's fascinating. And I totally geek out over it. I love it. Every person's body that comes in, it's like a puzzle I want to solve. I'm like, okay, now if it's over here, but also over up on that shoulder blade and down in that hip, then if I do this, I love it. I love it. And it fixes it. Everybody gets fixed. I've had people burst into tears because they were like, what just happened to me? I'm fixed. I've been in pain for 2 years and it's wonderful.
That's what I was going to ask you. Because I see all your testimonials on Facebook. What are some of the most rewarding or, common things that your clients have told you about working with you and Pilates?
Watching them get back to their lives. Mm-hmm. Watching them get back to their lives is probably the biggest, that's the most gratifying, because oftentimes I see the people who are coming for privates, people who come for classes, they're on a maintenance program. They're just now they realize they need to do this. They need to move these ways on a regular basis. So they incorporate it into their flow of their week. So those people are over here. The private people usually are coming to me in some sort of, they are at the end of their rope, right? Like they've been in pain for extended periods of time. They've tried surgery. They've tried physical therapy. They've tried acupuncture. Their husbands are worried about them. They're depressed. They can't do this with their kids. They've let themselves, you can see the way they stand, the way they dress, everything about them feels
downtrodden.
And watching that transformation and not even saying anything about it, just taking them through the protocols that I know to do for whatever that person, needs, taking them through that protocols, I slowly watch life come back in. And I slowly watch them stand up a little bit taller, and they come in, they go out and they buy some new Lululemons, and they're not wearing the old Nikes from 1985, whatever it might be. You know, like you can just feel that they feel better about their lives. And that is the best part of all of it. That is the best part of all of it. And then they look back to where they were, and they're like, I don't even recognize that person. And I lived with that person for so long, and I don't even recognize that person anymore. So that's the wonderful part. And that's what makes people stay with me for, 17 years. I couldn't shake them if I tried.
Exactly. So what if somebody wants to work with you?
Well, if somebody wants to work with me, that's a tough one right now. That's a tough one. I'm in a pocket where I'm not taking new clients right at this moment. But I do have people who I recommend, people I've trained. And then if I get any openings, I can always pop people in. But I've made a very conscientious effort to reduce my teaching coming back from COVID. That was one of my lessons. I was teaching. When you have people who come to you and they're like, I can't live without this. I need to see you. That's a lot to carry around. And I gave into it over and over and over again. And it was killing me. And I was working 7 days a week for years. I worked 7 days a week, and I was shot. And, so coming out of COVID, I basically said, I'm only going to take 15 clients back. That is it. And I have kept to that. I really have. I get phone calls and I have to say no. And, so I've been really trying to keep my boundaries as best as I possibly can. So, but I do have people who I've trained who use my studio. I'm here in Harrington Park now. So I certainly am happy to, guide it, mentor it, however it needs to be, to help people out.
Awesome. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's so important. Setting those boundaries and learning that your health and your well-being and you being okay for yourself and then for your family is of utmost importance. You can't serve anyone when you're working 7 days a week and completely burnt out. So applaud you for that.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
It's a great model for everybody.
Yes. It takes a lot. It's like, I have to okay, I can do this. So, and I'm very grateful when somebody writes that to me, because it's much easier to say no over email or text. If they call me, they'll have me. So don't actually put this out to anybody. Delete that part.
Stop recording.
Exactly.
Well, that was so awesome and informative. And
I'm so happy.
There's a lot of misconceptions out there. So that was really awesome for you to share.
Good. I'm so glad you've done it.
Hear your story and hear about your resilience and your strength and your boundaries was just such a great lesson for all of us. So thank you, Jessica.
Mwah. Thank you. And you're doing a great job, Janine. I love everything you're doing. You're kicking ass and taking names. Super proud of you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Talk soon.
Good luck. Who's next?
Dr. DeNoble, we're going to talk about taking care, instead of your core and your piriformis, we're going to take care of your vagina.
Oh, excellent. That sounds like a fun conversation.
To end with, right?
Well, the pelvic floor is a lot of what I do also. So it all goes together.
We transition right into that. We're just going all the way down.
Perfect.
I'm losing it. Can you tell?
I can tell. Good luck. Have a drink tonight.
Thank you.
3. Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. So it is 2:38. I'm going to take a little break before we're here with Dr. DeNoble to talk about sexual health, but also to talk about hormones, perimenopause, menopause. Really important topic. So get yourself a little snack, cup of tea, and I will see you back here in about 20 minutes for Dr. DeNoble.